Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to A Good Place. And do you want to be inspired by extraordinary courage and compelling stories? Well, you can come and enjoy these compelling real life stories and educational information of these modern day heroes. And where this is the good place where truth and integrity meet, where I will be introducing you to today's whistleblowers, educators, authors, journalists, humanitarians, activists, celebrities, and downright interesting people. And they all have one thing in common. They are people of truth and integrity. And today I have another one of these guests today. His name is Daniel Pressello. So Daniel, thanks for agreeing to the interview and coming on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm humbled and very appreciative that you asked me to.
Thank you. I just provide a platform for people like you because this topic we're going to be covering today is very in-depth and is something that really needs to be addressed. And you are the founder of the Courage and Strength Games for mental health, human rights, and children's rights. So let's jump right in. And how did you find yourself with the desire to do this work? We'll start with that.
Well, it's pretty simple. It comes from a personal experience. I have issues with mental health concerns of my own, depression and anxiety at times, and I like to use the terminology mental health issues and concerns rather than illness. I believe that one of the ways that stigmatization continues to exist in the mental health field is using the term illness. We don't, for example, look at someone that says cancer and constantly talk about their cancer as being the only facet of their life. We look at cancer being a part of their life, but when it comes to mental health issues and concerns, we look at people and we say they have a mental health illness, and that's the only thing that we seem to focus on is their illness. So I believe that if we change the vocabulary, we can also change the stigma associated with it. So again, I have some mental health issues and concerns of my own. Sometimes I deal with depression and PTSD. And to make a long story short, I'm an avid sports fan. I follow sports, both teams and individual players. And I was in Toronto when Prince Harry's Invictus Games were in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the people that were involved in his Invictus Games, the participants, the athletes, they had either both physical injuries and mental and emotional injuries that they were dealing with, or they were dealing with just mental and emotional injuries that they had endured or had occurred because of their occupation being a military member. And so I thought sports has a unique way of bringing all people together, all genders, all cultures, all religions, all backgrounds, politics aside and everything like that, that sports has a way of bringing and building communities. So I thought, why not put together a sporting activity for people that are dealing with mental health issues and concerns. As a matter of fact, 1/3 of the population today, or 1 in 3 people, I should say, will deal with mental health issues and concerns during their lifetime. And it is the number one cause of lost productivity in North America. I'm just saying Canada and the United States when I say North America. It costs the Canadian and U.S. economies in excess of $385 billion a year in lost productivity. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to found the Courage and Strength Games for Mental Health. And what it does is it involves sports activities, but it also involves not your regular type of activities. We will have rock climbing wall competitions because people have fears. They have phobias, public speaking, fear of heights, fear of spiders. So if we can give people the courage and show them how to have the courage, they will gain strength. For example, in that rock climbing wall competition, to carry forward in their lives in dealing with mental health and emotional issues. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, and I'm sure a good percentage are veterans because we all know that veterans, they go to war and they have to kill people and they have to leave their families. And there's a serious, the percentage of PTSD with our former military is extremely high. I can't remember. I think it's like 80% are suffering either depression, anxiety, all related to PTSD. So I'm sure you see quite a few veterans.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there's another statistic out there that 22% of our first responders and our military members that are experiencing PTSD or depression will attempt to take their own lives.
Oh, wow.
I don't like that, and that's not going to fly as long as I'm on watch, if I can do something. One of the things that separates the courage and strength games, and this isn't a big promotion about what I'm doing, it's more of a promotion of mental health. One of the things that separates my founding the games and other sporting activities like Paralympics, Special Olympics, Prince Harry's and Invictus Games, once those organizations and the events have been held, they're said, done, and gone. They move on to the next country and the next host city. With the Courage and Strength Games, and I'm bringing this up because you mentioned military members as well, we will have programs that will benefit the community after the games have been staged or the event has taken place in cities, the Courage and Strength Games. One of those programs is the MIA program, and we all know what MIA stands for from a military aspect, which is missing in action. Well, MIA under the Courage and Strength Game stands for Mental Health Initiative Awareness Program. Because I know from a fact, I have many military friends and that are still active and not active. They are still missing in action when they come home in regards to mental and emotionally. They have PTSD, they have depression, they have anxiety. They're not the same son, daughter, husband, wife, mother, father that they were when they went into service. And that's not saying all of them, but even ones that come out of the military that don't experience PTSD, there are implications of their jobs, their occupations. Same thing with police and firefighters and EMS. And as a matter of fact, our emergency room nurses, 1/3 of our first responders, police, fire, and EMS, will suffer, much like our military members, PTSD or depression. And 22%, again, I said, will attempt to take their own lives. So
it's pretty serious. And what about our government? I feel like our government does not take care of our veterans. And I am pro-America. I probably love America just as much as the people who support the government in all areas. But I'm going to fight for what I believe is important. And what do you think? What's your opinion on the government? Because I really feel they're not taking care of our veterans.
No, as a matter of fact, wow. The number one cause of death today, and this impacts our veterans greatly, is the opioid crisis that's taking place. The number one cause of death is for people age 50 and under is overdose deaths. And last year you had 64,000 people in the United States.
Yeah, I'd like to get into that and spend some substantial time in that. But I know you're in Canada, so maybe you're not completely aware. Oh, you did live in the United States. That's correct. So you told me that.
21 and a half years. And I love it. I was married to an American citizen. I had my residency down there. I still love America. And I don't always agree with the policies and the politics. It's the same thing up here in Canada. I don't always agree with the policy and politics. But back to your question, I believe that our government needs to step up and do more things. Our service members were there serving us in our time of need. Now
that's right.
To serve them. And
I agree.
Off a topic about the opiate thing, but the majority of service members that I have met, the majority of people dealing with PTSD will wind up self-medicating themselves with other substances. And the way mental health works is with the psychotropic medications. When we take them, it's like when we take when we have a common cold or the flu. The doctor prescribes us medication. After 2 or 3 weeks, we feel great, and we stop taking the full script that the doctor has given us. Then that cold or that flu comes back. And that's the same thing with mental health. When you're dealing with PTSD and depression and whatnot with our military members, they are given a script, and there are side effects to those medications. And when they are in emotional and physical pain as well, they've lost a limb or they saw a buddy lose their life beside them, and they're dealing with these traumas, and then they have to come home and be a part of a family that the family doesn't recognize them anymore as the person that they left. They wind up turning to substances
Yeah,
And
they can't even get an appointment. I mean, they're not getting the medical care. Some of them are just turned away. I've talked to veterans, and it's infuriating that they're not getting
this,
taken care of. And like you said, they try to self-medicate through alcohol and prescriptions, and they do. They go to the doctor, and instead of trying to heal in the appropriate way, in a way that's lasting, I went to a doctor once, and he goes, "Well," and I asked him a question about some natural remedies, and he goes, I just push medications. That's all I am. I'm a medication prescription writer." And he said that to me, and that's how he really felt. And we had a little in-depth conversation about that.
I've had negative experiences myself. I mean, I've had doctors tell me you're not the only one that had problems. I had
Yeah.
heart attacks, and I was sitting in a waiting room, or I got brought in by EMS with a heart attack, and excuse me, a person that was dealing with the opiate aspect is more of a mental health issue that we need to address rather than just an addiction issue.
Yeah, let's delve into that,
That,
because there is really we might as well just go there. There is a huge epidemic, an opioid epidemic that is reached uh, just proportions that we've never seen before. And I was reading some of the statistics, and in 1999, here in the United States, there were less than 10,000 deaths from over prescription or prescribing of opioids, and now there's reportedly over 80,000 a year, and that's reported. It's just
yeah, uh,
unbelievable. Yeah.
last year in the United States, 64,000 people lost, over 64,000 last year I'm sorry, I shouldn't say last year, in 2017. 2017, 64,000 people the age 50 and under lost their lives to the opiate crisis, the overdose. Now, when you think about that, a lot of people turn around and once you have a visualization, they say that's more people that died during the entire Vietnam War, the Afghanistan War, and combined. Well, I like to look at it from a visual picture from a different perspective because a lot of people really can't associate themselves the Vietnam War. I mean, because that was so many years ago. Sure, the numbers are daunting, but imagine this: the two biggest baseball stadiums in the United States and Canada hold 59,000, 55,000 people. So if you're watching a baseball game, you're in attendance at that baseball game, and all of a sudden people start dying all around you because more than 100 people a day in the United States die due to the opioid crisis and overdoses, or 100 people a day. So the biggest baseball stadium is Yankee Stadium. It holds 59,000 people. You're there at a sold out game, and all of a sudden people start dying around you, 100 people at a time. That is the impact that is happening today. In the city I live in Canada, Vancouver, Canada, 1,400 people died last year of opiate crisis or opiate overdoses, and it's the opioid crisis that's enveloping both countries. And
Mhm.
I it's personally disgusting that our government isn't doing anything about it. Where were they when 100 people were dying per year of overdose crisis? Where were they when 500 people were dying? They weren't speaking up. And I'm very blunt and to the point. The politicians don't want to admit that they're failing because if they admit they're failing, then they won't get reelected by their constituents. So
But you have
now,
to remember, here in the States, we have lobbyists. And
oh yeah,
that's
yeah,
what I think. They're lobbyists for the pharmaceutical company. And I have an article here. It's from The Hill, and it says, and again, I'm referring to America. Americans
no,
pay price Americans pay prices for prescription drugs that are 2 to 6 times the rest of the world, despite having personal incomes that are in par with many developed countries. For instance, the price of Humira is a top-selling drug to treat rheumatoid arthritis. It's nearly $2,700 per administration in the U.S., more than twice the price in the U.K. American salaries are not twice as high as the British salaries. And it says, here's the part I highlighted. One answer that nearly all countries except the U.S. have policies to lower drug prices, including price controls, regulations that limit the profitability of drugs reference pricing, and cost effectiveness thresholds. Like the UK, the main purchaser of drugs and frequently does not cover therapies whose cost per quality adjusted life year gain exceeds $50,000 a year. But the takeaway here is just that we don't have the regulations to limit it. And I blame that on the lobbyists, on Washington, D.C., that they have the pharmaceutical companies have their hands in the pockets of these politicians and of Washington, D.C.
We've got lobbyists here in Canada, not to the extent that you have in the United States. Like I said, I lived there for over 21 years. I agree with you 100%. Here's another daunting fact that I find disgusting. 5 of the main manufacturers, 3 out of the 5, sorry, there are 5 main manufacturers in the United States that make morphine and other opiates that get people addicted. As a matter of fact, in the 1990s, they came out with television commercials saying that it was a safe alternative to pain, and treating pain. It was not addictive, which was a lie. But 3 of the 5 manufacturers of opioids are also the manufacturers of Narcan, or Noxolone, as you would call it, which is the medication that saves people when they have an overdose. So here we are making the medication that's going to get you addicted and possibly kill you, but at the same time, we're going to make the medication that saves your life. Now, here's the thing that's very daunting to me, or disgusting to me about it. Noxolone, or Narcan as it's called up here in Canada, it's called the same thing down in the States. That cost has risen 28% in the last year. And who's paying for that cost? The taxpayers. So the same people that manufacture the drugs that are going to kill you have raised the cost of Narcan and Noxolone, the drugs that save people's lives when they're having an OD, 28%. Who carries these 2 forms of drugs? You can now carry it on yourself personally and get it for free, and get Narcan training, so if a friend of yours has an overdose or someone you know, you can administer Narcan or Noxolone. There's several types. One is by a needle. There's a new one that came out, which is a nasal spray. But our fire departments, our EMS, our hospitals, they all get it provided free at the taxpayers' money. But it's not free because the taxpayers are paying for it, and these manufacturers just rose their price, the cost of that, to the public 28%. So I find that disgusting. I find it disgusting. Where's our politicians in standing up for us? It's a national health crisis. The number 1 cause of death for people age 50 and under now is overdose death. And it doesn't discriminate. It crosses all barriers.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they're lining the pockets. These deep pockets are being lined by the pharmaceutical companies and so many other corporations as well. But this is really an issue. There's people dying. There's also people in need of medication, and most of them are elders. And they're like, for an EpiPen, it was like $1,000, and there was public outrage over it. So that is changing a little bit, and that goes to a point that
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say.
That young that bought some pharmaceutical company because it became available, and he raised the cost of an HIV drug by over 2,500%.
Right.
And he just got charged for it. He got charged, and he's being convicted. And it's okay. You're trying to make an example of some young kid that was demonstrating his bravado and his ignorance and his ego all at the same time. Well, why aren't you going after people that are actually manufacturing this? Then why aren't you going after the manufacturers that have just raised the cost of a life-saving drug 28%? It's like, wait a minute, you're calling the kettle black when this kid that bought this, he's a young kid. When I say kid, because he's a lot younger than me. He wasn't a kid, he's in his 30s. He bought some pharmaceutical company because it became available. Mm-hmm. He's doing some illegal trading and whatnot. But he raised the cost of this medication by 2,500% that was for HIV patients. It's the same thing you're talking about, the EpiPen. It costs $1,000. Well, if you can call the kettle black on one instant, why aren't you calling the kettle black for these pharmaceutical executives and these companies? You know, they're making billions of dollars a year. There's one that's being sued right now by several states because of the opioid crisis. But they're making billions and billions of dollars a year. This I just can't remember the name of the company off by heart.
Lilly, was it Lilly by any chance?
I believe it's Lilly, and it's controlled by one family, and they made over $400 million in profit.
And they merged with some, they've purchased some other pharmaceutical companies too. So they're almost a monopoly. Or maybe it's the other way around. I should have done a little more research on the companies themselves, but I haven't done that in quite a few years. And when I first in New York, I was interested in getting into journalism. And one of the first topics I wanted to cover was the basically the criminality of these pharmaceutical companies. And someone said to me, if you do that, you could end up dead. That's what someone told me in New York City. And I'm like, and I was a little fearful about it. I'm not scared anymore. I mean, I'm not scared
of it.
But I was young. And so I was really in fear.
One of the ways they treat here in Canada and the United States, heroin addiction is through prescribing a medication. And it has a street term. It's called juice. Oh, God, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
Methadone? Or are you talking about
methadone? Yeah. Thank you very much. Methadone. But there is criminality to that itself. Methadone gets you high.
It does.
It's a synthetic form of heroin, the street drug. And you will have pharmacists that will double bill because the methadone is covered by federal insurance and state plans. And up here in Canada, it's federal and provincial. That's the only difference is we call it provincial rather than state. But it's covered by those medical insurance policies. And you'll have pharmacists that will issue 3 or 4 prescriptions based on the same person, and they turn around and they go and sell that on the street. Mm-hmm. So a person gets 3 or 4 prescriptions of methadone to their own personal use, and then they'll go and sell the other stuff out on the street. It's just, and the politicians know this. I mean, we have in a sister city here in British Columbia, a city called Surrey. It's the second largest city outside of Vancouver, Canada. You've got 31 non-licensed recovery homes. And what it is because there's so much money being made from the other aspect of the opioid crisis. 31 of these homes are unlicensed. And what it is people have taken their single private dwelling, their private home, and they turned them into recovery homes. And the government pays through social assistance $1,000 to $1,400 per person in that house. So if you got a 5-bedroom home, you put 2 males in every bedroom, that's 10 people that you have now in your private home. You call it a recovery home. You get donated food and whatnot, but you're making in excess of $14,000 a month paid to you by the government. And these people are not licensed. They're not professional. They don't have any counseling experience. They don't have any mental health training and whatnot on how to monitor the distribution of medication. Because unfortunately, most people that are dealing with mental health issues and concerns are also dealing with substance use issues.
And there's people who use them for recreational purposes on top of it all.
Yeah. Well, there's an old saying, it's called current disorders or dual diagnosis.
I'm very familiar. For people on the station who don't know some of the other things that I've done, for a time being, I was working as a drug and alcohol counselor in the state of California and certified there. And I know all about dual diagnosis. I worked at a couple of facilities that's what they specialize in. And they started to see that many addicts had other issues going on. Sometimes it's hard to decipher because it's not an evidence-based field. This is subjective observation of clients that there was that so many addicts, it appeared from that subjective standpoint, had underlying issues. Because sometimes you see somebody on drugs and you're like, are they bipolar? You have to find that resting state. Or is it the drug that's affecting them? Like say if someone came in, they're coming off, detoxing off meth. It's really tough to tell the difference. So you try to find that baseline before you really try to make a diagnosis. But you're right about that. And there's the genetic factor too. That is a really huge part. Mm-hmm.
I have personal experience from using of substance, and I used to be a peer support worker, and I was a counselor as well. the old adage, okay, does someone that have mental health issues um, experiencing psychosis because of their mental health, or are they experiencing psychosis because, like I said before, the mind plays trick on us? We get the flu and we only take 2 weeks worth of prescription of the antibiotic to kill the flu or cold, and then the cold comes back worse because we think we were better. So our mind says, okay, I don't need to take the rest of my 30-day script for this virus I have, this cold and this flu, because I'm all better. I kicked it in 2 weeks. And then it comes back and it's twice as worse. Same thing with a person with mental health issues. Okay, they take this medication for years and years and years. Mind plays tricks on them. It's like, okay, I'm all better.
Oh, we'll be right back, guys, right after the station message. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I was so focused on our conversation that I lost track of time. And I'm here with Daniel Pressello, and he's the founder of Courage and Strength Games for mental health, human rights, and children's rights. And we were just discussing drug abuse perpetuated, in my opinion, by Big Pharma. So let's get back to our conversation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is. Not to be redundant, when you have the manufacturers, Big Pharma, that are manufacturing the morphine and other opiates that are getting people addicted of all ages, but they also manufacture the Narcan or Noxanol that is going to save your life. I think that's a great example of hypocrisy right there. Mm-hmm. And also a great example of hypocrisy in how our government allows, both here in Canada and the United States, this to continue to happen. Mm-hmm. I believe wholeheartedly, from personal experience, from my education and the education of others, that addiction is it's all about validation of self. Addiction is actually, in my opinion, and those that I've talked with, many psychiatrists and psychologists and whatnot, it's a symptom of a greater problem, and we're only treating the symptom, which is the addiction aspect, and we're not treating the problem itself.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with medical care. Oftentimes, they're giving prescriptions and they're just medicating the problem without really trying to resolve the underlying issue causing the problem. And that's been known for many, many years. And I do know holistic doctors because I obviously wasn't getting the help or the recommendations or the support of alternative medicine. And that's like a topic I'd like to jump into a little bit. In one of them, it's interesting because I heard it in the commercial. People believe, even before it was legalized in Oregon, that the government and the pharmaceutical companies had too much to lose. They didn't want, and there's different kinds of marijuana strains, as we all know, and CBD is just the pain relief strain. CBD, I'm not the marijuana expert, but I am aware that people use CBD oil in medications and marijuana that assist them with pain and chronic pain and so many other health issues. And now one of the biggest populations using marijuana now is the elders. And I really believe they were trying to squash that. But now, because they realize they can make more money being involved with marijuana sales and making it legal, they've gone the other direction. As long as there's money to be made, I guess it depends on in what way. And it's ridiculous to me.
They've legalized marijuana up here in Canada.
I heard. Yeah.
It's now legalized in March, I believe it was. Sorry, not March, December of last year. It happened where it's legalized. But I'm very cautious about why and the purposes they did that, because it's all, you hit it right on the head. It's all about money. It's just another form. It's just another form of revenue that we can tax. Mm-hmm. And it's just a different form of taxation that they're applying, and they're disguising it as something else. I mean, when the lottery system started, I'm just going to equate this with what the lottery system was. When the lottery system started in Canada and the United States, they used to have TV commercials. The lottery, it benefits, our education system, and they would use the revenue from lottery sales, different state governments, local governments, federal governments, to benefit our education system for our children. Now we count on the revenue of lottery ticket sales to be part of our budget, and it doesn't necessarily go to where the intention was when it first started. And that's where I'm seeing a possibility of this happening with the taxation of, or making marijuana legal and the taxation of it. I find it really, really amazing. On one of the cable news networks that I watch, former Speaker John Boehner, who was an ultimate conservative, is now a spokesperson for a cannabis company. Cannabis millionaires. This is on one of the cable news networks that I watch that comes directly from the United States. The former Speaker of the House, third in line to the presidency of the United States, who was ultra conservative, now is touting becoming a cannabis millionaire.
And even here in Oregon, there's some kind of price fix. I mean, there's like a dispensary on every corner, and which I'm not a big fan of that just because of children. And
Right.
there's a whole nother issue with it being legalized the way that it has. But there's still, you'd think, I said to my husband, I go, well, the prices must be more, it must be more affordable now. I mean, comparatively to the UK and places like that, where it's illegal and there's bigger risk obtaining it. But and I asked, and he said, no, it's obviously seems to be some kind of fix, even though there's one on every corner.
Yeah. Here in Vancouver, Canada, they had 77 medical marijuana distribution places before they legalized it. They were going through the loophole that as long as we could say it was medical marijuana, we could distribute it. And I've smoked marijuana before. Yeah. I don't know anybody in my life that hasn't.
I was about to say, I don't know anybody who hasn't. Maybe like 5% of my friends. That's about it.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that hasn't, and I'm not into these strands of marijuana and these different names and all that stuff. Hey, I just wanted a good buzz when I was a teenager, when I was in my 20s or even in my 30s. Somebody offered me, okay, it's been a while. I don't know nothing about it. I just know I smoke it, I get high.
Well, they're almost like on the verge of acid at this point. I mean, the teenagers, of course, now, there's an epidemic at our local high school. Everyone's smoking weed and using vapes. And this is like this is a nice neighborhood. These are nice families, some of the nicest families I've ever known.
I was just going to get into that topic about the vaping. Since the vaping has come out, you've seen an increase in tobacco use among teenagers.
You have, trust me, yes.
Yeah, I know you have, because of all the different flavors and whatnot. It's the in thing to do. And this is my concern with the legalization of marijuana. When we are allowing our younger people, they will get access to it either way. Someone will buy it for them legally, that's of legal age, and give it to them. And it's no different than a kid standing out in front of a 7-Eleven wanting beer. Hey, buddy, here's $20. Can you go and you buy me some beer?
Exactly. I know there's people's big brothers. I asked my son, I'm like, where are you getting this? Because he was very honest with me. I have a very trusting relationship with my kids, even though they do make horrible choices sometimes. And he said it was like acid. He goes, you don't even know how strong these THC strains really are. And it's one thing if you're an adult and you're making those decisions, but a 16, 17-year-old kid, that's really bothersome to me.
It's bothersome to me as well, because one of the reasons it is that a child's brain does not stop fully growing till the age of 24.
That's the new 24, 25. Yes, you're right. Mm-hmm.
So how can we turn around and market these vaping things? And trust me, I'm telling you right now, they will buy the vaping and they will mix their own things. I mean, one of the biggest highs out there right now is people turn around and they mix alcohol with these Monster or Red Bull energy drinks or whatever other energy drink is out there, and to get a high. And so when you have legal marijuana, it really bothers me. I'm an adult. I can make the decision myself. But as an adult, I also have the ability to fight off peer pressure a lot stronger than a child that faces constant online bullying and peer pressure in high school and elementary school.
And let me tell you, my son, just to make a quick point to people listening, my son went from an AB student and Mr. Jock and very, very popular to lethargic. his grades dropped to D's and even an F, and it just was a downward spiral. And it's so unfortunate. That was like his junior and senior year, and those were important years as far as education goes.
You're back to the point you were talking about. It's all about money. I mean, the United States government back during the Hoover years owns the patent on marijuana for medicinal benefits. The federal government of the United States owns the patent on medicinal.
Interesting. I'd heard that once and forgotten. That's a very interesting point.
Now, there's a great guy that I'm connected with, not to plug another network, but CNN, and the only reason I'm using this name is because Dr. Sanjay Gupta is an expert in his field. He's a neuroscientist and a brain surgeon and whatnot. And he was dead set against marijuana. And there's 2 TV shows that CNN came out with called Weeds. And if you look at the medicinal benefits of marijuana, the different strains, it helps people with epilepsy, it helps people with what you mentioned earlier, the CBT type of stuff, helps people with pain. Up here in Canada, in the province of British Columbia, they are now prescribing marijuana to addicts that are dealing with pain, because heroin, for example, is a physical addiction as well as it is a mental and emotional addiction.
Yes.
And when you're going through withdrawal, you get severe pains. The first place it hits you is in your joints, your hips, your knees, and your back. So the physical pain is what keeps people addicted to heroin more so than the mental and emotional aspect. Mm-hmm. With crystal meth, you will get physical pains as well, because what happens is people wind up ingesting it to some degree, and you get pains in the stomach. They get the bends.
And they have long-term effects on their emotion regulation. People who do meth have seen that.
What it does is it stops. You have your fire of the message, your snaps. It fires the message, and the receiver is not able to receive it in the other part of the brain. Mm-hmm. It doesn't actually create a hole in the brain. It just creates the one part of the brain from being able to communicate with the other.
Mm-hmm. But I just want to state my opinion. I am a big fan of medical marijuana, but it needs to be a little more controlled. That's how it was here. And that's just because I have children and I've seen what's happened. And there's been there's an increase in car accidents. There's issues.
There's been an increase in criminality too.
Yeah. And again, there are alternatives. And to get back quickly to the big pharma, there are natural alternatives, many out there, and they're hard to find. I mean, there's like apple cider vinegar, and there's vitamins that can help you as well. But that's just not what the doctors are told to recommend. It was really weird going from a holistic doctor and then going to urgent care and seeing a traditional doctor, and medication. It was extraordinary. So, Daniel, we just have maybe like 15 more minutes here, actually 13. And there's a very important topic, and that's near and dear to you. I wouldn't say dear, that we need to cover, and that's human trafficking. And I want people to hear about your personal experiences, and also, or maybe we can start at what's going on right now with the border and the people being trafficked. It's just a very important topic. So could you mind covering that for the last few minutes?
Oh, I'd be honored to. We really have a big problem in our society when it comes down to in my opinion, and from the studies I've read, validation of self. We will do terrible things to other people, and we'll do terrible things to ourselves, to get that instant gratification and validation of self. And it's very daunting. There's a newspaper I read, that yesterday's story, thousands of migrant children forced into prostitution. If you're listening out there, mothers and fathers, this is a serious issue. 1 in 10 male students in colleges or universities this year, 1 in 10, and it's been happening for the previous years, and it'll happen in the forthcoming years. 1 in 10 male students will be a victim of sexual assault and unwanted pressures in dealing with sexual issues. during their studies. So during that 4-year period of time, one out of every 10 male students on the university or college campus will be sexually assaulted or have to deal with issues of sexual nature that are not the norm. I was I'm a victim. I'm not going to say the word victim. I'm not a victim. I was a person that experienced child molestation. I was a person that experienced being prostituted. And that is a form of human trafficking, because when there's money to be made off of somebody else, that's a form of trafficking. So I was a child that was molested, and that led to my being prostituted out through an escort agency, and then eventually prostituting myself out. And when you look at the numbers from a mental health aspect, and this is why it matters to me a lot, is uh, people that have experienced child molestation, people that are their sexuality is different than somebody else's, the gay community, the bisexual, transgender community, from a mental health aspect, just from the one aspect alone, that they will wind up abusing substances, they will wind up being overburdened with mental health and emotional issues, and a good majority of them will attempt to take their own lives. And a lot of them will wind up being a victim of human trafficking in the aspect of sexual exploitation. So it's very, very important that people understand that. I was a victim of child sexual exploitation. I was a prostitute. My mother and father were both high middle income earners. I mean, we had Mercedes. My parents were so successful that they bought my sister and myself, when we were driving age 16, they bought us our own cars. So I didn't come from a family that was not well off, but I came from a family that was unaware of, like I was, wound up being molested as a child, and wound up being prostituted out by escort agencies. And it happens today, and it happens more than you think. When we tend to think about sexual exploitation and rape and sexual assault, we think about women. 1 in 10 male students on a college campus today, or university campus in Canada and the United States, will be the victim of sexual exploitation, which means prostitution or sexual assault and or rape. Mm-hmm. So, and I could give you all kinds of daunting figures and tell you where to go to look it up, but all you have to do is just Google it yourself and you'll see.
And who doesn't know somebody? At this point, ask your friends. And I know it's a tough topic to bring up, but I don't know. I know so many women who at some point were molested, that became models or playmates or just different. It's really sad. And I think partially it's because they didn't get into modeling it because they were molested, but they were very, attractive kids. And I think that might be part of it as well. But they had such self-esteem issues, just these wonderful women, and some of them are just my normal, the housewives in my neighborhood and people like that. It's really awful. And on another station I talked about, when I was 7, this man tried to kidnap me. He was a sexual predator, and he pulled up in his car, like he was always there waiting every time I was going up the stairs, but I didn't think anything about it. I was 7 years old. And one day he called me over to the car, and he was naked and he was masturbating, and he wanted me to take him to some freeway that I knew the freeway. I had no idea how to get there. And he goes, "Well, come in the car and you can tell me where the freeway is." It was really awful. And then there was a maintenance man when I was 8 that would say, "Oh, you're going to be really sexy, blah, 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 blah." And I went home and said, "Mom, what does sexy mean?" She goes, "Who said that to you?" She was infuriated. We got him fired like within a week. Even back then, just horrible things. I've heard that from so many women. It's really sad.
What people don't know about is you talk about the Harvey Weinstein and all these other high-profile levels of public figures that have fallen, and the Me Too movement. There's a whole other side of it that people don't even know about. There's the male side of it. And I was actually wound up part of that. I lived in Los Angeles for 21 and a half years.
Oh, yeah, you know that. I saw that a lot living in
There
Los
was a
Angeles
bar that
myself.
I used to
Mhm.
go to on Sunset Boulevard, and it later transferred to Santa Monica Boulevard. It was called Numbers. The reason it was called Numbers is because men, highly successful men in Hollywood, producers, directors, writers that were driving Ferraris and living in these multi-million-dollar homes on Mulholland Drive and Laurel Canyon,
And
and
like David Geffen out in Malibu, he was
right,
really,
okay.
yeah.
I was there. I participated in that. I remember being driven to places in a Rolls Royce to have sex with older men.
Mm,
I've been there. I've lived it.
I'm
And
so
the reason the
sorry.
bar was called Numbers is because that's what you would discuss numbers. How much for this person? How much I'm willing to pay for that person? And the
Mm.
politicians knew about it in West Hollywood. The law enforcement knew about it in West Hollywood, but they refused to do anything about it. It's the same thing with the politicians and the lawyers and I mean, Weinstein had it written in his contract that they had paid off these people that he sexually assaulted and abused to keep them shut, their
Mm.
mouth shut. The politicians, the
It
lawyers.
worked because I'd never heard. He was so respected, living in Los Angeles. He was the most respected producer as far as his work. He made wonderful films, Oscar award-winning films and then, also some of his sexual exploitations and involved with these actresses whose careers he made. I was
Well,
disgusted when I found all that out.
I can tell you stories that would make your
Oh,
toenails
I
curl.
bet I know some of them too.
No, it's just some
Awful.
of the most successful people I know. There was one man, I'm not going to name his name, but he's no longer alive, so I don't want to drag his family and everything. But this guy worked for Aaron Spelling. He wrote the famous episode "Who Shot J.R." I was paid to have sex with that man.
Hmm.
It was the number one
By the way,
watched
to
episode of TV.
protect ourselves legally, allegedly these things happen, these crimes occurred. Using the word allegedly kind of protects us. But personally, but still we have to be careful.
Oh, I'm talking about my own personal experience. I know of all, somebody can tell me other things and allege this person happened and did this and did that. You're absolutely right. It's alleged. I can't say that that happened. I'm just talking from my own personal experience, what I've seen and what I know is happening out there today. Forget about all the Hollywood stuff. I'm going to go back to the last point I want to make. Mom and dad, if you're listening to this show, sexual assaults, sexual exploitation, which is a form of human trafficking, does not just happen to college girls and university girls. 1 in 10 boys, young men, will be a victim of sexual exploitation, sexual assault, and or rape during their college studies.
Mm,
And that's a form of human trafficking.
yeah.
So don't be afraid to ask questions because it's very embarrassing. And most of these sexual assaults that occur on men, 1 in 10, so it's very, very hard for a male student to come out and talk about it because they blame themselves, because they'll shame themselves in thinking that they are something that they're not. Or
Okay, so
something
we just
they're
have a couple more minutes here. So, what can we do? We mentioned something to all you mothers and fathers out there. Trust me, you need to know where your children are, and especially if they're under 18. I know we don't have a lot of power after that, but we need to educate them as well. I mean, I have a daughter who is meeting guys on Instagram, driving out. I mean, she was so naive, and I go, "What?" And she's
not. Yeah.
beautiful. Like, what are you doing? And one guy kicked her out of the house and she had to sleep in a shed one night. I'm like, I was just in shock. Absolutely. She's 18. I couldn't do anything about it. As much as and she already had little hints of those decision making. I took away her phone. She didn't have a phone until she was 18 years old because of her decision making or lack of, I should say, her discernment. But yeah,
I
parents pay attention, watch the social media. Number one, you're not supposed to be on Facebook if you're under 18. So if they're like,
yeah.
oh, well, other people on there, sorry, they're not supposed to be on there. And I don't let my
My
other daughter, she's not on it.
my best advice to any parent out there. First of all, I'm not a parent. I want to make that clear, but I have nieces and nephews. I have friends that have daughters and
Mm,
sons. Um, I have a mother and father. I have a brother and sister. So just because I'm not a parent doesn't mean that what I'm about to say is not true. The best advice that I can give anybody out there, particularly in this world of social media, is parents befriend your children. My mom
That's
and dad,
right.
for example, because they're in their 70s, going on 80, they've been married 57 years because they were, number one, each other's best friends. Befriend your children. Become friends with them on social media. It's not about a sneaky way of propositioning things and finding information out behind their back without their knowledge. But befriend them. Become your children's best friend. That's the way that you're going to develop trust with them. So if they do feel uncomfortable or unweary about some type of way a person is approaching them, they'll have that trust already with you, and they won't be scared to come talk to you and ask you your opinion.
We just have
Don't.
like a minute left, so I'm so sorry to cut you off. You got to come
That's
back
a
so we
good
can
idea.
continue this. So come on,
Yeah.
resources, links, go ahead and give them now. And also from that other thing that you were saying, be a parent first, a friend second. And I'm very close with my kids. They tell me almost everything. I don't suspect they tell me everything. So that does work. Just be open and honest, and they'll be open and honest with you. So please, links, resources, go ahead.
Um,
Do you want to go ahead and give them?
yeah. Pressello, before that.
I tell you what, people, you can get us linked on the interview, which will be posted on Truth Frequency Radio, and be back next week. Thank